Shakespeare once said all the world's a stage, but he didn't tell us how to get there. This is Steps to the Stage, a 7th Street Theater podcast. I'm your host, Colin Pinedo, and let's get the show going.
Thank you, places!
Folks at home, do you have a business, small or otherwise, that isn't pulling in traffic the way you want it to? Well, it might be because they don't have something to remember you by. And that's why today we are sponsored by Graphic Details Inc., signs and displays. They will print out your banners, they'll cut vinyl, they'll do window graphics for the company cars. We're talking business cards, banner stands, LCD displays, tabletop displays, logos, all in full living color. Again, that is Graphic Details Inc. here in Chino, California. Thank you so much. Hello, and welcome to Steps to the Stage, the community theater podcast where we go through the ins and outs of what it takes to make a production with the community theater professionals you know and love. Today, we've talked a lot about what goes on behind the scenes, above the scenes, in front of the scenes, audience, production, directors, all of that. We haven't really talked about being an actor in one of these shows with people who have been in these shows before over and over and over again and loved every second of it. And so today we have our good friends Sydney and Abby to talk about an actor's perspective. So, Sydney and Abby, welcome back.
It's great to be back.
Hey, how are you guys doing today?
Pretty good. How are you? Excited to be here?
Good, yeah. Excited to talk to you guys.
Cool.
We're happy.
Very cool with my fancy headset.
Of course. Yeah, look at you with the microphone and everything. Oh my god.
I know, right?
So the first question that I have for the two of you is a question that I've asked a lot of times on the show. How did you get involved in this theater?
Cool. Sydney, you want to go first?
Sure. So I have a pretty fun story. I was a soccer girl for quite a few years. My family's a big soccer family, and I was supposed to be on the spring select team, but then it ended up changing plans, and I ended up not being a part of that team, and I was a little bummed out. So my mom's really good friend, Christina, she was like, oh, Sydney's so, enthusiastic, charismatic, like she should do theater, like she should do this little play. It's called Hansel and Gretel with the Chino Community Children's Theater, and they put on like great productions. And so she actually had me try out and sent it to my mom, and I ended up getting a role, and I got to play Frick, one of the goblins. So there, the time for the next season rolled around, and my mom was like, okay, do you want to audition for another one, or do you want to sign up for the season? And here I am. So I was super glad I made that choice.
Awesome.
Yeah. How about you, Ab?
Yeah.
Nice.
So I have kind of a similar story to Sydney. I also played soccer for 8 years before I went into theater. So my family was a really big soccer fan. Soccer was like my entire life. And then one of my best friends in elementary school, Ethan Lauren, had been doing stuff at the community theater. And I went and saw, what was it? Coney Island Christmas. And I saw it, and I was just so amazed by all of the talent that the young kids had. And I was like, hey, I think I could do that. Like, that seems really fun. I had always sung with my dad since music was such a big part of my life, but theater was never really something that I had thought about before. So after I saw that show, I was like, hey, Mom, I think I want to do something like this. So I took a audition workshop for Little Mermaid, and then I auditioned for Little Mermaid in January of 2016. And then I got in as a little sailor, and that was my first show. And I've been here for about 6 years and haven't stopped. And for a while, I was doing soccer and theater, and then I'm now full theater. But yeah, I love it, and I'm glad to call it my home.
Nice. What was that experience like for both of you? Transitioning from like soccer and sports, going into like theater and like acting and figuring that out and like being a part of a show and rehearsing and all of that.
It was very interesting because they're very different, but also similar in a lot of ways. Obviously, it's going from like athletics to like, dancing and singing. So I would say something that was interesting to see is how much of like teamwork you had to have in theater and how much ensemble work it was, which is obviously very similar to soccer. So I think soccer definitely set me up really well for theater to be like a team player and to, be aware of everyone else around me and work together. So I think that. Yeah.
I know. I agree. Actually, thinking about it like that, you're working together as an ensemble, going for that goal, and then you got your intermission in between.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. What have you learned and how have you grown as an actor in the years that you've been a part of this?
Right. I think there's a lot of different aspects that you learn from being a theater. I think growing up in the theater, it's like shaped so much of who I am as a person. Just like
100%.
having arts always in my life and having such great people surrounded by me. And I think you learn so much to care about other people and work together with other people. And like, as much as everyone like thinks like, oh, theater is this like stardom and like it's always the like dramatic of like I'm the star, but so much of it is like being a big family and working together to have that common goal of putting on a show, which is something that's really cool. And I think like I definitely learned like what hard work is and what like this sounds so sweet, but like what love is. Like I feel like I learned so much about like love in theater and what's really cool, I feel like I always tell people, is you learn so much about yourself through like being other people and going through other people's experiences. You learn like about who you are and obviously what to do and what not to do. So, and obviously you make like so many really amazing friends, and yeah, and it sets you up for like if you do want to do it in the future. So yeah, I guess that's what I've learned.
I totally agree. I know it's all about supporting each other. And so I feel like how Abby was saying, through the years, getting to play all these different characters, sometimes you'll see some of them where you don't instantly think like, oh, how am I going to play this role? But then you find that one thing that kind of resonates with you, and it kind of just like sticks with you. Like it's your character, part of you. Like
they're yeah. Absolutely. I 100% agree with both of you on that. It really does like stick with you, and there are certain characters that you really like allow to become a part of yourself in a weird way after you've after you've let yourself become a part of them on stage, and how you learn a lot about becoming a tight like an ensemble and like almost like a family unit in a lot of weird ways.
Yeah.
For people who may not know necessarily a lot about like community theaters, like regional theaters and stuff, what like is the process like from like auditions to like opening night for you as a performer? What's like the timeline, I guess, for you?
Sid, go ahead. You can go
first. So from auditions to the show, I feel like there's also the time period before where you're prepping for auditions, and finding a song. A big thing for me is also finding like an outfit. So it's like something that you're comfortable in, but also, kind of has a connection to the character somehow. If, if you want to audition for a specific person, you can do a little something for yourself and just dress almost like nodding towards that character, but also kind of, also like objective as well, not totally subjective. And then moving on from that, you have your song or you're prepping your monologue, and then going in, you're really nervous about auditions, excited. And once you're done with auditions, there's that treacherous period waiting for the cast list. Lots of texting or like movie watching. Abby, I don't know what your
I have so many things to distract myself. It's a whole craft that I've perfected.
I know. I usually get like a little Starbucks afterwards.
Just try to find a way to comfort yourself.
Yes,
absolutely.
Prepare for the storm.
Yes, exactly. And then from there, just the first read through. That's always so fun. And then you want the rehearsal process to just keep going. And then once you're about to start the show, you're like, oh my gosh, really? Let's go back. Like it all went by so fast. And then before you know it, you're doing the shows. And then it's like a week after the show closed. And you're like, wait, I feel like I'm rehearsing
very fast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you're just waiting for the next one.
100%. I totally agree. Yeah. I think I have very similar processes. Before auditions is definitely like a very big time for me because I'm very like into like researching the show before you audition.
Exactly.
because I think that's really important to like go into audition to have like some sort of idea about the show. So there's definitely that, and obviously preparing for your song and finding what fits right for you for the show, and you know, looking through everything and being like, what role do I want to play? So then you go into auditions. Auditions are always very interesting. Feel I feel like I feel, wow, that's a lot of feels. I have a different feeling like a lot of people is when I'm in auditions, like when I walk in, I feel like a very sense of calm, and then I get stressed out afterwards. So it's kind of like flipped.
Yeah.
I enjoy auditions,
you're not like thinking about it.
Yeah,
you realize
but it's definitely very it's very hard because you like analyze every single thing that you do when you get home.
Yes,
you're like,
you are like on hyper alert with yourself.
Yes, it's crazy. Yeah, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I have to wait. Like I just did it, and now what am I gonna do? I usually will go out somewhere or like go out to dinner and like turn off my phone so I'm not like, you know, seeing everyone's text messages like
stressing about it.
I'll set like notifications for all of like the social media to see when the cast list comes out. And then you either get casted or you don't, because it's a very real possibility that you won't. And then if you do, obviously you do your first read through, and then you go to rehearsals. And I love first read throughs because I think it's a very good like indication of like what the vibe of the show is going to be, because you kind of get to see what the chemistry is with your other cast members. And I always love the feeling after first read throughs, because you're just like, you're so pumped to like start the show, like especially if you have like a really good cast. You're like, oh my gosh, like I get to spend the next 2 months with these like incredible people. And then like Sydney said, you go through you go through rehearsals. Then
there's a second audition process after the first
one.
Oh no, yes, it's even more cutthroat.
You go through rehearsals, and then you do your shows, and then by the time you know it, it's over and you are preparing for your next audition. And it's kind of crazy because obviously you're sad to stop performing like the show that you've been working so hard on, but also like especially in a lot of shows where there's people that you won't really ever see again after the shows. That's definitely totally. Like something that's super sad after a show, because you're like, what the heck, we've just like been through so much together and worked so hard, and now I'm like not gonna see you again. But yeah, I think every process is different for everyone, but yeah, it's definitely an interesting and very fun and exciting process doing theater, especially at a community theater when you're like close with everyone. So,
absolutely, yeah.
All your friends and like family.
Yeah. And I was about to say that's another aspect of it, of like everyone, like most people like know each other already from past shows and we've become friends over time. Like I've done many a handful of shows with the both of you, and and we've all sort of developed these little friendships with each other in this bigger group. And I think it's really cool how
it's super cool. I think one of my favorite things is like getting to perform with like the people that you love the most. It's like the best feeling in the world.
Yeah. It almost makes it less stressful in a way of just like, it's okay.
Yeah,
I'm just
especially
I'm playing around with my friends almost. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So much more fun.
So the both of you have been doing shows here for a very long time. You've seen a very large array, a very wide palette of different directors and different directorial styles. And so how have all those influences affected you as an actor and affected how you perform scenes and create characters, like collecting each one as you go? Yeah.
I believe that every director is valuable in some way to how you grow as a performer. I think some of the worst directors that I've had have made me like the performer that I am today and have helped me grow so much. So I think either way, no matter if it's a good director or a bad director, if you don't like the directing style, I think you'll learn something from everything.
Yes.
I think the environment that the director sets definitely sets the mood for the show, and I think sets how you're going to perform. Because if you don't necessarily feel like loved or like in a safe environment, obviously you're not going to perform as well. So I think having directors, which is almost all of our directors at Chino, you just feel such a sense of loved at the theater and safeness, and you feel worthy, and it completely enhances your performance, and you know that no matter what, everyone's going to love you and you are talented. And so yeah, I think directors are definitely a big part of how your performance is elevated, but I think no matter what, you learn so much from each director in each show that you do.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I know definitely some directors will sort of have like the actors try to figure out a lot more things like with depth, whereas other directors in the past like have kind of offered information. Right. So I just think again how Abby said, like it's different styles, and some directors may be a little bit more like strict or like stricter, or some might ask you a bunch of questions to kind of help you in the place where they kind of see where your character is going. And so like Abby said, I think there are a lot of different sort of styles, kind of like when you get teachers, you have new teachers.
Yeah 100%.
They're all, it's just kind of like what teaching style resonates with you.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think everyone has a different every directing style, like every actor has a different like directing style that they like there's some a directing style that they like mesh with specifically, that totally like Sydney loves, or there could be one that Sydney hates and I completely do not vibe with, but it's all depends on like the individual performer.
And I think being a professional is accepting that sometimes you won't mesh with the same directing style and just continuing on with the performance.
Going with it. Exactly.
It's a cliche, but
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. Just being able to say, even though I don't agree with this thing or the other thing, we are all here to accomplish a certain goal and make the show better by being a part of it.
Yeah, and even like receiving certain notes, sometimes you might be like, I don't see it that way, but then you gotta step back and you're like, okay, they know,
they know open.
So then you try it out.
Yeah. They're here for a reason. You're here for a reason.
The acceptance and like being able to go with direction and go with notes, I think is really important with being an actor.
I think also like allowing you to not agree sometimes with your director, like that's totally normal. And it's like okay to have a different opinion, or like like a director might say one note about a character and you're like I don't really agree with that, but that's okay because everyone interprets a show differently. So
both of you being able to take each other's
think either way, if you have a different opinion, you can still respect the director and be professional and
have like a
do what you
conversation about it.
Right.
Totally, absolutely. Yeah. So on that note of giving notes and advice and changes back and forth, how do things change from like the first rehearsal to the first production? And like in your experience, how have things been ebbed and flowed in that type of way?
I feel like sometimes when a show, like sometimes shows will kind of at CCCT and like other theaters, but sometimes the like week of Heck Week in tech is a little some things might be a little bit messy, or like like what was the blocking,
a little chaotic,
like, a little chaotic. There's like a little moment of chaos where people start to doubt if the show will come together, and then it always does the next
when everyone's stressed.
Like I definitely
everyone's
feel like
tensions are building and building.
So in those like chaotic moments, sometimes people might get a little bit stricter, but it's like you kind of need that structure to keep like everybody together from freaking out. Exactly. So I think that's great. And in the beginning, I think everyone's all pretty relaxed because you're starting into it, but definitely as you go through the process, everyone just kind of starts working more and more as they're like diving in. Diving into the character.
I agree 100% with that. I think Tech Week's definitely like it's crazy. It's super fun afterwards, but when you're in it, you're like, oh my gosh, like what if the show is terrible? Oh my gosh, like we've worked so hard. Oh my gosh, we have 2 days to opening and we haven't even blocked the number. And oh my gosh, I can't breathe. And then everyone's like freaking out, and then you get to the show, and I don't know what it is, but the theater magic works it and is like the show is incredible. And it's so interesting to see the change of like literally days where like everyone is like sobbing, they're crying, they're hyperventilating, they're like, oh my god, the show's not going to come together, and then it does because you all work hard for each other and you all had it in you. It was just a little moment of chaos. So I think notes definitely slowly progress throughout the run of the productions in the beginning. It's kind of like chill, and then once you like get into more like, you know, when you have like longer rehearsals or like more intense scenes, then obviously you'll get more notes or more intense notes. But I guess it depends on like what show you're doing and what director you're doing, what director you have. Oh my gosh. And yeah, I think that's it.
Picture this for me. Warm food, right? People chitting and chatting all around you like it's a big family. You know, take a whiff in, breathe it in deep. What do you smell? What is that? What is that? What is it? Tomato? Ooh, a little bit of garlic? Yeah. Perhaps a bit of that mozzarella cheese? Oh, you know it. Open your eyes. Where were you? That's right. Canateros, dine under the vine with a hand-tossed pizza made the old-fashioned way. You know what I mean? None of that deep-fried gunk like at those national chains. No. If you want good quality, family-made Italian food, go to Canateros. Trust me. Sticking with the topic of tech week and like transitioning from being in like a green room and going to like rehearsal stage and all that, how does the performance change once you actually get on stage and there is like an audience in front of you? How does like internally or like mentally or however any type of way that it might have an effect on the performance once you realize, oh, people are watching you. It's not just us in front of the mirror with the director in the corner. Yeah,
exactly. It's definitely like, I've done a lot of shows, and every single time I open a show, it's always a shock to like see an audience. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what? Who are you? That is not my director. There is strangers.
I don't recognize that face.
I think it makes it a little bit. It definitely, obviously, it's a little bit more stressful when you have people there because you're like, you want to do good. But I think also it makes it so much more fun because you're not just performing for like the same people. You like get to show people and
you get like the feedback
that you're so proud of.
Yes.
Right. And yeah, I think I personally like having an audience more, and it makes it more enjoyable, obviously, when you have the feedback and knowing that like you're making someone's day or like bringing joy to someone is like super cool. I just the energy of the cast goes up when you know that like it's real. Like we have like worked up to this point and we're finally here, and it's like super cool. Yeah, I think everyone would agree with that, but it's definitely like you like get so many jitters backstage because you're like, people are breathing the same air right now and it's kind of crazy. And what if we mess up? What if everyone breaks their legs? Like, but it's so much fun once you go. Like I feel like once you step on stage and you like say your first line, sing your first note, you're just like, you know, and then you can perform and have fun.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like having all those people there, they're all there to support you, you know, and support the production. You know, nobody decides to go to a show. They're like, I don't, what am I doing my Friday night? It's a show that I won't enjoy.
Everyone wants you to
succeed. And same thing in auditions. Like they, you know, you doing well, you being the perfect role that they want is like helping them. So it's like they're like always rooting for you. So I think that's a great thing about theater as a whole. And like Abby was saying, having the audience there, it just kind of like reinvigorates the cast, like everyone, you know, because getting past that kind of slope of chaos, everyone's just so excited to, you know, for the show to be running smoothly, and then for
and see it come together,
and then people like, you know, having the claps and then the laughs. I think that as audience members, you know, that always helps the performers. So, you know, when we're in the audience, I know
audience members out there, please support us.
The jokes, please.
Yeah, it'll be a lot better. No, all three of us, you know, as actors, we kind of have that appreciation too, where we're like, when we're in the show, we're like, oh my gosh, and you know, we clap, and we'll have our laughs, and I think, you know, it's just kind of like an exchange of, you know, support.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's something really cool. I feel like theater is like being like able to connect with someone just for like 2 hours, 3 hours, and just connect over this one show and this one shared experience that you have. I think is something that's like super duper cool, especially with people that you don't know. You're like, whoa, we just had a super cool connection, and I may never see you again. But that's okay, because I just got to share a story to you, and I hope you learned something from that. And I don't know, I just always think it's so cool, like seeing the connections that you make with people after the show, and seeing everyone's
even if you never see that person again, I think that person and you will both have that memory of the connection that you shared with each other, and will still keep that with you and will still have that connection with them for a while, even if you never actually have like another in-person moment with them again, which I think is actually really special.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's so interesting, you know, having that moment, and you know, all three of us as actors, when we ourselves watch shows, I think that's so interesting, because then, you know, anyone who kind of is on the other end of their profession, they say they'll have the little inside, like, oh,
yes,
that's so cool,
yes.
look at that change. Right. And I think like that's so interesting too, how you know, being on the other end of it, like, wow.
Yeah, because the three of us were just watching Drop Dead at the community theater a couple weeks ago, and
yes,
we were very active in that audience that night.
Yeah. Yes, you
swear. And yeah, I think it's very interesting how like we know like, oh, this is what they're looking for, this is what they want to receive, and we are more than happy to be able to give that to them, because we're enjoying it just as well as they are.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think you also enjoy it even more, like seeing like fellow actors like have fun. I think that's like
the better appreciation for it,
and like seeing another show.
Yes.
You're like, wow, you know, they know the process and the work that had to go through this. And
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Agreed.
So the final question that I ask almost every episode, there have been a few here and there, but what advice would you give to the listeners out there who have not necessarily done a whole lot of community theater work or any community theater work at all about like being an actor, being a part of this community? What would you say to those people?
I would say something especially for young actors, what I wish I would heard when I was younger is like, just be yourself. I think that's super cliche, but theater is so much about authenticity and being who you truly are and having a safe place to do that. So I think like, don't try to be everyone else, because there's only one you, and there's no one else can be like you. So don't be like anyone else.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I would say don't get discouraged if you don't first get into a show or first get the role that you want. Everything happens for a reason, and there's always going to be more opportunities. So I would say be your true authentic self. Don't give up, and work hard and have fun.
Absolutely.
Theater, sometimes people take it too seriously. Sometimes, like, just have fun. Theater's supposed to be theater's supposed to be something that's fun for you. So just, you know, live it up and have fun.
Enjoyable, you know. And how I was saying, even if you get like 1,000 no's, that one yes is going to be that much more like great, and you know,
100%.
Just enjoy it. So again, just trust yourself. I feel like a lot of people who don't want to do theater or like public speaking, like I feel like theater is such a great thing to be a part of, because not only, how I said earlier, it has that support, it also helps you in all avenues of life, just that human connection, being able to express yourself. And just again, like public
learning how to work hard. You learn
I
so
think
much.
that's great. And so just go for it. Like I know a lot of people in my life who, you know, they'll say like, maybe not this time, you know, I don't think I'm good enough. Just don't tell yourself that. Show them how good you are, you know. Prove, you know, you gotta trust yourself, and love yourself. So knowing who you are, being your authentic self, I completely agree. And just know that, you know, if you're nervous for anything, as we always say at the theater, nervousness is just excited energy with a scary mask on. So just, you know, if you weren't nervous, you wouldn't, that means like you don't care as much. And it's like, if you're nervous, you're really excited.
And it's so normal.
I mean, I've been doing performances with CCCT since I was 9, and I still get nervous before some rehearsals and you know, all of that process and auditions, definitely. So it's just a part of it, you know. Let it happen.
I think also, like, obviously it's great to like look up to people, but also like remember the people that obviously, like, professional actors still get nervous and they still make mistakes. So no one is perfect, and like theater isn't about being perfect. It's about performing and being a human. So I don't know, just remember that when you're looking up to people that are like, oh my gosh, these people are so cool. Like, remember, we get nervous too, and we make a lot of mistakes.
And I like to just think it's super funny because, you know, big stars and, you know, actors, Idina Menzel, or, you know, Keira Knightley, Brad Pitt, like all these people, who individuals look up to. It's just like those are theater kids who happen to now.
Yeah.
Theater kids that made it.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. We're all just theater kids at heart. You know, we start the same, you know, acting theory questions, diving into a character. It's like we're all the same, and so it's just they had that moment to sort of just trust themselves and shine, and just took that leap. And you know, everybody should go for it, because you know you can make that person.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both of you for being here with us today.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Talking to you.
It was so much fun.
All right.
Have a great night or day whenever you're watching this.
In today's day and age, it's more important than ever to remain informed and present in your community, which is why today we would like to highlight the Chino Champion local newspaper. Make sure you keep up with all of Chino's great local events like festivals, meetups, and live performances, virtual or otherwise. The Chino Champion. Thanks for tuning in. Please, subscribe to Steps to the Stage on your favorite podcast platform, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that good stuff. And scene.